Looks like it. Excellent. Okay, well, we'll call the meeting to order Tuesday, April 26th, 7 p.m. We'll start with our land acknowledgement as we gather here today. We acknowledge we are in Treaty 6 territory in the homeland of the Métis. We pay our respect to the First Nations and Métis ancestors of this place and reaffirm our relationship with one another. We'll start with adoption of the agenda, but before we do that, is there any late items anyone wants to add?
I move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Oh, hold on. Perfect. Can I get a seconder?
I'll second it.
Alright, I am going to add something though, which I think that I do now, right? Formally. So we're just going to add the topic of conversation around the homeless tent cities, I guess if we can sort of call it. And that will be added into...
Probably 7-1 would be
Okay,
good.
perfect. Yeah, that's
more
a
of
good
a
idea.
conversation.
Okay, great. So 7-1 under committee of the whole. So we just add that really quick here. It's fine. So 7-1. All right. So I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. Move to adoption of the minutes for April 12th, 2022.
I'll move to adopt.
Seconder.
I'll second.
Okay. Any further comments, questions? All right. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Aye.
Okay, the motion is carried. We'll move on to, let's see, all the way down to 8.1. So,
7.1.
thank you very much. 7.1, which is committee of the whole and the last minute item that was added to the agenda. So obviously, we have been made aware that there is some overnight camping happening at various places throughout our community, and administration is requesting some direction from council. So before we do that, I think we do have to motion to go into committee of the whole for that, correct? So if I can get a
Also move.
seconder.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say nay. Okay, motion is carried and we're in committee of the whole. So we need to discuss what we want administration to do. I think we can talk a little bit about what we are seeing and what our feelings are on it, but ultimately we do need to give clear direction to administration for what we can do for the situation that our residents are concerned about. So I'm going to open up the floor if anyone wants to talk.
Yep.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Has anybody else thought of like where we could designate a spot for them to go? Because obviously they're going to need somewhere. I think it's better to work with them than, go against them, because that's just going to cause conflict. But also we want our community members to feel safe going to parks and stuff like that as well, right?
So at this point, there's been just a complaint about just the fact that they're there.
Yeah.
There hasn't been any behavioral or any issues in terms of.
Well, the way that some of these letters read, there's public indecency, there's public urination, there is public fighting happening. So, these are issues that of course can be reported to the police, but those are things that they're not happening in my backyard, but if they were, I think I'd be very, very concerned, and this ultimately is, for us at this table, it is our backyard, so.
The most visible encampment right now seems to be behind the clinic, in some of our public reserve, which seems to be a more permanent one. It is close to residential/commercial. I don't think we've seen any formal complaint from them. There is the public safety concern, because they're the nice thing about the encampment behind the clinic is there is a sharps box there, and
If they
hopefully
use
it's
it.
being used. But I do know that area becomes quite littered with encampment debris, whether it be parts of tents or clothing or sharps, food prep, packaging, what have you. This has been a very, very, very long-term issue. It seems to be getting more visible. Addressing this, I think that the town might be in the best position to try and engage some of the community partners in asking them what they think the most productive way to kind of move forward on these issues are. The vulnerable population and the houseless in the community are soon going to have nowhere to go again. And to be honest, in my own experience, I don't know where folks typically will house themselves overnight or sleep overnight when the shelter isn't available to them. So has that location, because we're seeing it more visibly now, has that location disappeared for them? Is that no longer feasible? Because I know that there's a couple spots in the community that are less visible that I think they've used in the past. So I'd like to see administration maybe start to engage a little bit with those service providers in the community and just feel around for what information we can gather so that we can approach the issue in a sensitive manner. And maybe a solution might come out of the mouths of one of these community service providers that they're like, if someone just did this one simple thing, if only. That may not be the case, probably isn't the case, but I think we're going blind, so on this one.
We'll see who's left.
Yeah, sure can. I'm gonna pass this down. It's such a difficult issue, and for me, I think it would be great if administration, by law wise, see what we have already in place. Do we have anything that that is in our policy right now that states that they cannot set up camp where they are?
Currently, the town, in terms of municipal reserve or parkland or land that we own, the only rights that we really have, we have nothing specifically in bylaw. So in terms of if someone is doing something on our property that we haven't permitted, that's something that we would look to enforce. So erecting a structure or a camp or something that we haven't allowed, that would be something we could enforce. We don't have anything on the books to enforce them being there or not, or being there at a certain hour, or doing certain things. A parks bylaw certainly could help provide some clarity on that front, establish some rules and a process for people who want to do something that wouldn't typically be allowed to ask permission to do so. But mostly it would be if they're doing anything illegal on our land, or doing something on our land that is permanent or causes damage. We would have the same rights as any landowner, but nothing really specific.
I wonder if we can we can create some communication around that, because if, based on those letters that were presented, if a resident is seeing, indecent exposure and things that, public urination, things that are illegal, then the resident does have to take ownership of that as well and report, and then we can try to do what we can do as far as policy building. But I also think that maybe we do engage with the owners, or not the owners, I shouldn't say that, the agencies that are looking after our vulnerable right now and seeing what they suggest to do. And then from there, if we do, just off the top of your head, are there any locations within our boundaries that would be a safe place, or a place where they're not going to be bothered, or where we aren't going to enforce, or we're not going to, you know what I mean? Is there anything that you can think of that would house that? Keep looking that way, because that's where that map used to be.
Nothing specifically comes to mind right now, but if that was the direction of council, is find the least problematic area or areas that we could encourage them to move to, where they maybe aren't directly behind a residence, where there aren't going to aggravate pets and things like that that cause noise complaints or other things.
Mhm.
Those kinds of considerations, we could come up with some ideas if and that seems like a logical step to take.
Any other thoughts?
Yeah, basically resonating what's already been said, like if there's instances where they're breaking the law, absolutely, with the RCMP need to be contacted either by that individual, the resident, or even by us, cause it's happening on our property, so and if it's making some of these residential areas uncomfortable, like it's something that has to be dealt with, but it is a larger issue than what we're gonna solve tonight. I would be in favor of trying to move them to an area a little bit more out of sight at least, or maybe not right beside somebody else's residence, if that's possible, and I think there are a few locations in town that could serve that need for now.
Mhm.
And again, reaching out to the agencies that are responsible or have been engaged in helping that population could be a good idea too.
And it's probably really wise too as well, because as we're gonna see the end of the funding happen for the silver building specifically, I know like it's only 5 days away, so it might be a really great opportunity to, as people have said at this table today, to reach out to those agencies, whether it's you or our bylaw enforcement, just so that we're not having to be, I wanna be very consistent with our bylaw enforcement, if we have the ability to do that, but at the same time, like, making sure that we are offering as many different options in beforehand.
Just one more thought that kind of follows from, perhaps we can find somebody somewhere that is better for them to, better and safe for them to sleep overnight. We are gonna have to think about what resources we can commit to cleaning up the location after an encampment is removed, or removing an encampment, and what that might cost. And possibly if there's any way that we can, I'm not sure if I am totally for the idea or not, but maybe exploring if there's like a work program that we can offer those that are, you know, vulnerable and using these spaces to sleep overnight, to have them contribute back to be able to maintain a space or clean up an encampment or what have you. And that would require staff resources and some monetary resources as well, like financial resources. So I don't know what that looks like, or if that is even feasible, especially with gaps in staffing right now, but I kind of do want to put that forward just as a thought on the table.
One other thing we could think about doing, and it kind of worked in Patterson Park a little bit, is we spent a little bit of time and money thinning some of the underbrush and stuff out, basically doing a Fire Smart program, but making it so that it's more visible through the trees, and that's going to help entice people not to be there when they're not hiding in behind the bushes. If we open some of that up a little bit and do some cleaning and basically a Fire Smart, that could help
I am aware
alleviate some of that.
some residents aren't in favor of thinning treed areas because it provides a visual barrier from other properties. So it may be worth checking in with neighboring properties just to see what their thoughts are and coming up with a plan that is sensitive to, you know, some of the existing conditions. And
Well, it wouldn't be hard to talk with them about that
no,
too.
and that's the
maybe-
thing, I just want to make sure that we're not just going to go in with a brush cutter and
I'm not saying knock everything down, just
Yeah.
thin some of the underbrush out and
yeah,
clean it up a
be able
little
to
bit.
clean it up. Yeah. Agreed.
But
Yeah, I think, you know, it's so sensitive of an issue, and you know, you hate, because of their situation, you hate to rule them out, but if, you know, if we can find an area that's maybe less sensitive to the public, but, and also provide maybe a porta potty or something so that they do have something to use, and maybe some garbage facility so that they're not, you know, have garbage cans so they can put their garbage in there and be responsible for that area. You know, if you give them the tools to work with, maybe you'll see a level of cooperation, and we just can't just shove them out of the community. You know, you gotta have some spot for them. and we have to work with them and provide some of those amenities, you know.
I'd like to start off by apologizing to my fellow councillors for being a little late today. My clock is 5 minutes ahead in La Ronge, so I'm running on Northern Standard Time, I guess, to get to the meeting here today. So apologize. And secondly, it's great to welcome some members of the public into our council chambers. So Johnny and Tia, super exciting meeting that you guys have attended, I'm sure. But welcome to the council chambers. It's, like I said, great to see some people back. So. On the issue itself, I mean, we've seen some letters and we've known this has been a chronic issue in trying to find a long-term solution to house homeless in La Ronge, and that's something that I think everyone at the table has taken relatively seriously moving forward. One of the things that comes to mind, and I say it tongue-in-cheek because I don't think it's the most dignified place to sleep, but one of the areas that has come to mind where it will balance a bit of the daytime commercial space and the nighttime non-residential would be what we're currently using as our snow dump. I mean, as the snow starts to melt, there's a nice flat ground there. It's kind of the end of a road. It could be managed a little bit easier. Finlayson, at the end of Finlayson, past Northern Light School Division. I believe there's a couple residents on the way down that street, but I think right at the end of the street, it's mainly businesses. So I mean, if we can provide some level of security, maybe talking with local RCMP to just do some drive-bys in the area in the evening to make sure that there's a heightened level of presence, I guess, in that area, as well as being able to, if we are able to in some way, shape, or form centralize the population, we can also bring services to that central area a lot easier rather than trying to meet people at different spots throughout the community. And if that's a constantly moving camp, if you will, it's going to be harder to manage that. And I think that for a very short-term summer temporary measure, if we can go to the ideas of temporary washroom facilities, some garbage and some recycling in that area to be able to make it at least a bit of a, if you will, campground. The only, I guess, downfall of that is as you drive across the highway, that is a place that you can kind of visually look into town, and that might be something that a lot of people will see as they drive by. But I'm also the type of person that believes that sometimes making that a little bit more visual can make you realize that there needs to be some investment in that as well. And I think that that's a fair balance in tackling this issue.
I agree.
I don't think that's a great idea for that location though, Jordan, because that is, like, there is commercial spaces there, but every one of them also has a residence too. I think there's only one business there that doesn't have a residence in it. There's an apartment off to the side, and there's quite a few residences there. And like you said, the visibility from the highway, we already face the issues that everyone looks at the Ronge and sees these negative things, and I don't think we want to put that right on the highway front either.
Maybe.
I think there could be better areas than that.
So I think just so that, because we do need to wrap this up, because everyone's got different opinions on the location, I think what we do is we'll rise and report, and we get the administration to come up with a few different options for us. From there, reach out to agencies. Is there anything else that we're going to rise and report out of that, or anything else you necessarily want to bring to the conversation?
I was just gonna say, if we, if that ends up being a suitable location, there may be some work required, maybe a little bit of gravel just to kind of clean it up, so, because it's muddy and those kind of things. So if that could be another.
Okay, Brian, was there anything else that you wanted to add?
No, that's fine. I was just gonna say the location's not that bad.
Okay, great. So we'll just motion to rise and report, and then we'll motion for what we'll do to direct administration.
Also move.
Seconder?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say nay. And then just a motion I think it's just find the different locations based on our conversation today. That'll give you some groundwork of where we do that, whether it's the Finlay Street, maybe some of the different park options. You might even come up with some other ideas. I'm not sure. Robbie might have some other options too. And then also reach out to the agencies to see what they may think. Go
I
ahead.
think if you got a hold of the homeless strategy committee, because they got a NIMBY group, right, which is not in my backyard.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they could help by reaching out to wherever we're thinking of putting it and doing some educational talking to the members of that area and.
I think another thing I'd like to see is that we, you know, maybe firm up our bylaw in terms of public parks, that, you know, it makes it clear that, you know, you can be there at times, but you can't have structures or things like that.
Overnight camping and that.
Yeah. Anything not actually a use listed in our bylaw is thereby prohibited.
I,
So
I,
the fact that we don't permit it.
I would like to also see in the parks bylaw maybe some potential for a permit, so that way if we do have somebody that wanted to do like camping in the park overnight, that it wouldn't be like outlawed because our bylaw says it.
We have provisions in our bylaw, I'm pretty sure, for a cabbage patch, so we should be able to, like a work camp. I'm pretty sure recreation and park is included in that, so it's a temporary permit, it's a temporary use.
As long as it's permitted, like not permitted, but like if you have
Somebody
a
can
permit.
apply for a temporary.
It makes it more difficult to enforce when you have, you know, if you have, you know, you know, it's either you do it or you don't. Because it's hard to have a gray area when you're trying to enforce something.
I think she means as a discretionary use, so it would have to be approved by council first.
Yeah.
You'd actually have to buy a permit.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, essentially with the parks bylaw, we would just outline what's typically not permitted. And then things like, for example, if someone wanted to set up an event in a park and blare music because there's a concert or a street festival, those are things that you would allow because you would give them a permit to do so, not because they would be allowed generally. But it would be something that we would have to approve. But I think there's enough direction. We don't really, I don't think administration requires a motion.
Okay.
We will do some investigating, come back with this.
Okay, two more, just really quick. Councillor Reese, go ahead, and then Robbie will come to you next.
Perfect, thank you, everyone. Good evening, fellow councillors. So I guess my question is, with the homeless strategy, when we do that consultation, Lyle and Robbie, whoever ends up doing it, would it be possible to request that whoever is part of that homeless strategy team actually consult with the park users as to where they see themselves potentially setting up camp as an alternate location, with the explanation that where they are located right now is breaking bylaws, right? So, because we can determine a location, but if they decide, well, we're not gonna go there, and we're just gonna stay where we want to stay, it's gonna be an ongoing battle. So it'd be nice for them to have a little bit of a voice. That would be my recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bender?
I think because that question addresses shelter you're talking about, would council be interested in purchasing a property and a building? Is that kind of something like that occurs?
I don't think so, because I think that starts setting precedents of the municipality taking ownership of that. And based on the conversations that happened at this table, that's not where we want to go, as far as I'm understanding, unless someone else disagrees with that. So right now, Robbie, we're still just looking and relying on the agencies in town that are forging through, and also doing it at the political level as well. Everyone at this council table is doing what they can. Okay?
It sounds good.
Okay, thank you. Alright, so you're good, Lyle? Okay, great. Alright, we're moving on to 8.1, which is the OCP and zoning bylaw amendment. Request for decision around bylaw 656 and 657.
I'll
Or
move
a
that
first reading.
council proceed with option A and give first reading by law 656, 2022.
Okay, do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, other comments, questions?
I think we approved the project, it's only should be a formality to really accommodate it.
Okay,
I'll move to.
not worried about it. So,
You did?
yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
So I'll call the question. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Okay, the motion is carried.
Almost bylaw 657.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll move that as well.
I'll second.
Okay,
To amend bylaw.
sorry, this is. Oh, I see here.
to amend bylaw 572-16, known as the zoning bylaw to 657-22.
Wait,
We're just giving two for, there's the.
Once the
CPF
OCP
as well,
goes
Oh,
on.
I see.
and they have to have separate,
Got it.
independent readings.
I'll,
Okay, guys.
I'll second Councillor Clausen's motion.
Thank you. Any further comments or concerns? Call the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion is carried. Move on to 8.2, which is the zoning bylaw amendment application for the mobile home courts. Request for decision as presented. Mr. Bender, is there anything that you wanted to add to your report here?
At this time, as there were any questions raised in the report,
Okay.
I was kind of trying to work with the applicant to rest of the zoning amendment. So they want to bring in, right now our mobile home courts are only regulated to be only mobile homes, have to be CSA ratings at 240 type buildings. So maybe they're looking at bringing these different type of buildings that are not mobile homes, but still are sized appropriately and still keep with the mobile home aesthetic.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Bender?
Are these RTN, Robbie? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Councillor Reese.
Sorry, I was looking at the minutes, not looking at the screen. I didn't realize the minutes talking. Robbie, are these like the ready to move homes? Are they just prefab homes?
What kind of they refer to, they're kind of like a hybrid, they're built to national building code, basically it's like a tiny home, built out, from what I understand, on screw pads. So basically, it could still be removable and built, I guess, a little crawl space, but they're not put in a permanent, concrete type foundation like a normal house. So I included a bunch of variations in the proposed amendment there to include array to roof homes, even the Z241 type park model mobile homes. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that kind of class. You can include those ones, modular buildings, pretty much up to anything, but still keep with the whole intent was to keep with the existing use of mobile home park. Technically, they could be classified as a dwelling group with many dwellings on it, but just keep with mobile home park and just amending the bylaws seem to fit. You know, and I don't know how many mobile home parks there are these days, but I mean, smaller tiny houses in the mobile home park, kind of like cottage here, like Waskesiu kind of area, might kind of work.
I kind of have two questions when it comes to the implications for the bylaw. So what you have presented in the report here, so you say the following are possible definition amendments. So I don't see anything like highlighted or bolded. Are these brand new definitions that are being drafted, or are these existing with just a couple tweaks to include the type of mobile home that we're looking at, or hybrid?
Right now, mobile home court is, it's actually defined on the page for mobile home court is any parcel living with 2 or more occupied mobile homes. So basically, it's the exact same definition as before, but I included the bottom of the page there, which 2 or more occupied mobile homes, park, model, trailers,
Okay.
modular homes, ready-to-move homes.
So this is just this is just being more explicit on the types, and then making sure that the appropriate definitions are in there that match that.
Most of them already are included. I mean, I guess I need to take on that park model, but that is an option. Park model, that is one sign that isn't defined in the zoning bylaw, but that is something to define. But all the other modular homes, ready-to-move homes are already defined.
And so the proposed is going to fit within these definitions based on what you've drafted, and then we are also ensuring that we're not allowing, for example, a mobile home court full of ATCO trailers or dwellings that are not desirable for that kind of thing.
Well, I mean, technically, the ATCO trailer, I think we just have to carve that out as modular workforce housing, but I think
Yeah.
that kind of falls under modular buildings.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're not shooting ourselves in the foot after some of the past amendments, to make sure we keep the quality of homes high in those developments, and just keep the gaps closed in the bylaw for that. And I
Yeah,
guess-
we could not, I mean, that's just proposed amendment, right? We could not include the actual trailer type units, the bunch houses that are built on a steel frame. I mean, it's similar to a mobile home, just different, it's a different beast. It's an echo trailer. I mean, I think what I kind of classify the intended buildings they want to bring in there are more they're ready to move. It's just like a tiny house built to the National Building Code, built, placed on screw piles.
Mhm.
Looks like two parallel beams built on, 4 or 8 screw piles on the ground. And eventually that hook up to the existing services of the school home port. But then if they could be removed from the property easy enough.
Okay.
It's just not built on a steel frame or not built in the 77 modular home type buildings.
It's something that, from what I'm reading, would be a higher quality than
Yeah.
what is already allowed.
I'm not so worried about like the proposed development necessarily. It's just future developments. If there's lots that are zoned that way to make sure, because I know there's been quite a few past amendments that are dealing with some of the tweaks of these
Messing with
definitions.
and changing the law.
So I'm just checking. I do have a procedural question. For administration generally, I don't know if Mr. Bender, you know better. When it comes to advertising, has the town explored any additional advertising allowances within legislation besides the Northern Pride? Because like, how often does that even
Monthly newspaper.
is it published anymore?
It's circulated every week.
Oh, it's still
Summer
weekly.
months,
Okay.
and they do take some weeks off from Christmas, couple publication dates off, but, no, we haven't. I mean, we should just put it on the town website, then we put it on the Facebook, and then we advertise on the Northern Pride.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
And back to, I mean, if you didn't want, go back to the other question about what kind of buildings you want to include, we could not include those at modular workforce housing type buildings. That is something we could write into the definition.
No, I was hoping that they would remain their own defined structure to place in specific use areas.
I'm trying to think, I mean, I think I have to see how it defines, if it's defined as a modular home, I'd have to cross-reference that, but that is concerning them.
It may be something that we just have to wait to be challenged with. If you're feeling secure that you've, met the parameters of what we are trying to define here, then I'm very comfortable with it. And
I think it looks like a mobile home to me, looks similar kind of nature, self-contained. It may even challenges every mobile home is just a dwelling unit, self-contained, 4 walls, and built on a steel frame.
And the biggest advantage here is a mobile home doesn't meet National Building Code, whereas these structures would.
Yeah, I understand they're inspected off-site by the building official, and we get paperwork as they come to town, so it's just similar to like a modular home built to the, National Building Code.
I'll make a
Or
motion.
single home, I guess.
So just to be clear, so under the old bylaw, just mobile homes were allowed, modular homes are not included, right?
Correct.
So now by expanding this, now you have an option of still using mobile homes and also expanding to the modular type, which are technically mobile because they're not on a foundation. I think it's a great idea, and I think there's a lot of nice modular homes out there that that they're affordable and they're designed more energy efficient than trailers, and so there's lots of good options there.
Councilor Phil?
I'll make a motion to direct administration to amend the bylaw to modify the definition of a mobile home court.
Second.
Okay, and then Lyle, you wanted to add something as well?
Yeah, just that the intent today is just to get a sense that this is an agreeable approach. When we bring the actual amendments forward, we will highlight, red line, so that council is very clear as to what's changing.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you.
Just a quick point of interest on the lot development itself. Do you know if in our current structure, is it one lot or is it multiple lots within one lot?
Multiple lots within one lot. There's 9 similar lots, I believe.
So the taxation and utilities are billed out per unit, or it's one bill?
It's kind of billed out separately. The utility billing's billed like $92 per dwelling, I believe, just like any other residential. The taxation's a little different. I believe they fall under there's a mobile home or bylaw, I think every trailer is taxed separately or just, I'd have to get back to doing that unless Lyle or Shannon.
Yeah, well, on the utility side, I believe there's a calculation per unit that's there, but that essentially goes in one bill and then the owner collects.
If you believe it's better suited for in camera, I'm not sure where you're on with that, but is the town liable to the curb stop and everything passed into the court is responsible of the owner, or are we responsible to each and every lot within that?
Our responsibility, from what I understand, our responsibility is the curb stop.
Okay. I'm fine with going to the question myself.
Okay, we'll call the question. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion is carried. We move on to 9.1, which is the 2022 Building and Development Permit Report for information purposes only. Is there anything that you need to add into this, Mr. Bender?
Nothing more at this time.
Okay.
Still working on a few parts at the time to get some subdivisions going. Nothing much more.
I'll move to receive and file as presented.
Seconder?
I'll second that.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay.
Aye.
Motion is carried. Move on to 9.2, which is paving and road repair plan, request for decision. Ken is on the line. Does anybody have any questions for Ken as to the report that is presented?
And this is just for short-term repairs, this has nothing to do with the report that AE was gonna send us, is that correct?
That's correct.
I'll move that council proceed with option A, direct administration to proceed with the 2022 plans and budget for road repairs.
I'll second.
I think we will need to increase the increase to the 2020 budget for
Increases the budget by $30,000.
Perfect, thank you. Seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, any further comments?
So, do we have this wiggle room in our budget generally? Is this,
Yeah, there's still,
we can make this work?
we'll make it work.
Okay.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's something that council's been very clear that they wanna see happen. This is what it will take to make it happen. There are some things such as the enhanced policing contract that we may save a little bit of money at the end of the year on, so that could be an offset there, for example.
I think we're pretty aggressive on our budget, so I think we may have extended ourselves beyond what we could actually do, so I think based on that, I think there may be a little wiggle room.
Yeah, the capital program will definitely have some deferred items, but it's not a cost that's going away. That's a little different than the enhanced policing, so just as long as council understands.
Mhm.
So it's the two there.
Alright, we'll call the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Okay, the motion's carried. And then just a motion for in camera.
I'll make a motion to go camera.
Seconder?
Second.
All in favor say
I'll
aye.
second. Oh, sorry, sorry.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion's carried. Okay, thank you guys for coming.
You guys wanna come to more meetings? That was way too quick.
Thanks, Ken.
There was some magic there.
Yeah.
You guys have a good evening. See
Yeah,
ya.
you take care.
Who's? Bye, Ken.
See
Thank
you,
you.
Bye.
Who's Spencer and Kevin?
I don't know who Kevin Wiener is.
Oh, that's their water security?
Yeah, hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Were you guys just?
Hi. So, just getting, hopefully you can hear me fine, I'm trying to get my video going, here we go.
This was
Yeah,
just in
I'm
relation
Kevin here with
to,
the Water Security Agency,
some of the
that's Spencer
concerns.
McKnight here with us as well.
For.
the letter we had written.
Flutter.
Okay. Where was that in the agenda?
It's not, but we weren't really sure how the conversation wanted to go, so we thought it might be in camera.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. Got it.
It's funny, I recognize this. Oh.
Okay.
So,
Just
tell me that story, I hope I'm coming through and you can see me now, am I coming through?
We are able to hear you, yeah.
So is Spencer also part of the organization too? Is that okay?
Yes, he is, yeah, we're both with the Water Security Agency, so would you like us just to go from here, or how do you want to?
Sorry, I just need 1 second. Can you tell me where this agenda is for the in-camera stuff is?
Yeah, we don't have one separate, the public agenda, like all the in-camera items we usually just circulate.
Okay.
But there wasn't really a supporting document for this one other than prior conversation and the letter we sent.
Okay.
So I apologize. I'm trying to work out a solution that
Okay.
is sends you kind of an in-camera agenda as well.
I see. Okay, so is there anything? Is this the only item on the agenda for?
We got correspondence regarding this.
There's about 5 in-camera items.
I know that's what I'm trying to because I've got a lot here and I
Yeah.
just want to try
Yeah.
to put this in order here.
Okay, in camera.
I have a list.
It came at 1:35.
Yeah, I
They
think.
called.
Pardon me. Oh yeah, okay. I do see that. Thank you.
Which, sorry?
At 1:35 today. I type in Lyle's name and then
Oh,
because I went in camera and I was like, okay, now I'm
Another
lost.
7, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm so behind my emails.
I got these gentlemen are not on this list though.
No, they're not. They're not on. There hasn't been like a circular that went out with it. I'll give you the list of items that I have here though. Aside from this one, we had the fire survey that you wanted to look at.
Right.
We had. I'm going to give a brief personnel update. There was an email that went out on that.
Yeah.
There is a offer to purchase,
Mm-hmm.
and there's Broad Road discussion.
Broad Road.
Barada.
Road.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I said Barada. Okay, awesome. Okay, so we'll thank you guys for being here. We'll address the water agency issue on our agenda first. That way we don't take too much more of your time. So thank you for being here today. And yeah, please take it away.
Perfect, yeah, thanks very much for having us. So my name is Kevin Wingard, I'm the Director of Rural Water Services with the Water Security Agency. I'm based out of the Swift Current office, and I have Spencer with me as well. I'll let him introduce himself in just a moment here. But yeah, so our group, there was some, I know there's been some discussions, some emails, some phone calls back and forth with Spencer and possibly others from our North Battleford office. And we were just asked to come to the meeting, and so we do have a few slides that hopefully we can share here, and Spencer will run through some of that stuff, and then we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. So I'll pass it over to Spencer, please.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, I'm Spencer McMahon, supervisor for Rural Water Services North here out of North Battleford. So I do have some slides, and hopefully everybody bears with me here while I try to share my screen.
Okay, I just made you a host, so hopefully that'll make that easier if you hit share screen.
Let's see what we get here. Looks like that. So can you see a PDF here?
Yeah.
Looks like it.
Got it.
Should minimize.
Okay, so I will go to full screen mode. Okie doke. So I don't know if everybody's been out to the structure or not at the north end of the lake, but here's just a few images. Fish way down here in the bottom right, several shots from the air, and one.
Sorry, just 1 second. I realize that we're still live, so give me one moment here. How am I gonna do this now? I know, but he's sharing his screen.
Options?
I think escape will get you the.
Oh, there we go. Sorry, Spencer, just one moment here.
No